At City Hall, Hillary Clinton's victory in the Nevada caucuses on Saturday led to a big sigh of relief among supporters who were worried about the surprisingly strong and resilient challenge from Senator Bernie Sanders. Now those supporters are looking ahead to Saturday's South Carolina primary and the contest on Super Tuesday. That falls on March 1st. And that's going to be, they hope, an opportunity for Clinton to firm up support and put some distance between herself and the Sanders campaign. But could Sanders continue to give Clinton a run for her money? Joining me now to talk more about it is one of Clinton's most vocal supporters here in our city, Congressman Jeffries, represents parts of Brooklyn and Queens in the House of Representatives. He joins us now in the studio. Welcome. Very good to see you.
Good to see you, Errol.
And now, aside from the fact that Clinton is, I guess, the home state favorite for everybody in the New York delegation, and even her headquarters is somewhere near your district. I don't know if it's in your district.
But it's in Brooklyn.
It's in Brooklyn, which is close enough, I guess. But why so vocal in support of her? Because the whole, much of the delegation has supported her. Very few have done as much as you've done.
Well, Hillary Clinton, to me, is ready, willing, and able to take the baton from Barack Obama, assume the presidency on day one, build upon the progress that has been made by this president, and then keep the progress moving forward on behalf of everybody throughout this country. And these are very important times. Nobody thought Barack Obama would be elected, let alone re-elected, or at least in certain parts of this country. Many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle still can't believe it. But he's done a tremendous job on behalf of the American people, and we want to make sure that that job is preserved and built upon. And clearly, for me, Hillary Clinton is the best person to do it.
What makes her the best person?
Well, if you just look at her track record, she's been involved in issues of importance to the African-American community and the American people for more than 40 years. She started out as a young lawyer at the Children's Defense Fund, working on issues of criminal justice reform in the 1970s, trying to fight on behalf of young people and prevent them from being incarcerated in adult jails. That's very impressive to me and to many others. Then in Arkansas, she helped to create a civil legal services organization that provided representation to thousands of individuals, many of whom were very poor, impoverished, and otherwise wouldn't have gotten help.
But Congressman, isn't there a problem when you want to pull out the resume? And she does have a long history, and there's a lot that we can pick through, but we can also find footage of her arguing for the 1994 crime bill, which for a lot of people did the exact opposite of what you just described. And some of this is inevitable. You stay in politics for 40 years, you're going to be on all sides of some issues, I suppose. But does that give you any pause at all, that she was fundamentally wrong on an issue that led to mass incarceration?
Well, she was incorrect as it relates to the 1994 crime bill, and so were a whole lot of other folks, Democrats and Republicans. And I might add that Bernie Sanders himself voted in favor of the 1994 crime bill and vocally defended that vote, particularly as it relates to the construction of prisons, which is what helped fuel the mass incarceration era. There were a whole lot of who got it wrong at that particular point in time. But I look at the 1990s, and she was also responsible for creating, in large measure, the Children's Health Insurance Program, which was a real meaningful bridge between Medicare and Medicaid from the 1960s and the Affordable Care Act that was eventually passed in 2010. It was a phenomenal program, and it was an outgrowth of the failed effort as it relates to universal health care. She didn't give up. She was knocked down on the ground. She got back up, kept moving forward. Now, you're correct, Errol. That 1994 crime bill will go down in history as doing a great disservice to many across the country. And Democrats and Republicans right now are involved in an effort in Washington to try to reverse some of the adverse impacts of the mass incarceration era and move things in a different direction.
So now, when we hear a lot of talk about it, and you and I talk politics all the time, and this is how people slice and dice the electorate, the black vote, the Latino vote, this, that, the other. There's been all of this talk about a Southern firewall, and you and many of your colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus came forward and endorsed her right at that time, and it was referred to as a firewall. How do you feel about being a firewall? And what about the idea that, you don't need a firewall unless there's a fire, right? I mean, what's the firewall about, and why do you want to stand in its way?
Well, it's been a phrase that has been used, and I think essentially the underlying point is that Hillary Clinton has the broadest possible appeal to the diversity that constitutes America. She won in Iowa, and that's a pretty undiverse state, and then she lost in New Hampshire. Some people were alarmed. But I understood the dynamics of the New Hampshire primary. I have great respect for the state, but the reality is, Errol, if you and I were to step into almost any town in New Hampshire, we'd automatically double the African-American population. And so the reality moving forward in Nevada, which has a diverse electorate, and certainly in South Carolina, many of us were of the view that that would be an opportunity for Hillary Clinton to demonstrate her broad appeal. And certainly she's got deep and long-standing relationships in the African-American community, and she's earned it. She's earned it as a result of her work as a senator, where she consistently was supportive of issues important to the African-American community and others throughout New York.
When you say she's earned it, it makes it sound like there was no hard bargaining in exchange for the support, that she gets the support, she marches into the White House, you stop getting your phone calls returned, and what did your constituency get out of it?
Well, I actually think that the opposite is true. And we're in a situation now where it was assumed that because of the historic nature of Barack Obama's candidacy, that the African-American community would be strongly behind him, as we were. In the post-Barack Obama era, it's an open question as to how supportive, based on turnout, the African-American community will be for whoever the Democratic nominee is in November. And the fact that the African-American community is now in this position to be decisive in helping to advance the candidacy of Hillary Clinton, if it goes that way, is going to be critical. But the game is not over once she gets the nomination. At the end of the day, African-American turnout is going to be incredibly important, and Hillary Clinton is going to have to work hard to make sure that she can approximate the turnout that was generated for Barack Obama. I should note, Errol, as you know, that African-American women over the age of 50 outperformed during the Obama years and his general elections every other demographic in the country.
Sure.
And in order for Hillary Clinton or any Democrat to prevail in November, she's going to have to secure a similar level of turnout.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, here again, I'm still waiting to hear, like, you know, in exchange for this very crucial support, we or this faction of the Democratic Party is going to get X, and I haven't heard X yet, but I'll be asking you about it as we get closer to Election Day. What do you think about the matchups? When you look at the polls, it looks like in some cases Sanders is doing as well, if not better, than Senator Clinton when it comes to matchups against Trump, matchups against Rubio, matchups against Ted Cruz.
Well, I think over time, as the choices become clear, right now everything's hypothetical, and Bernie Sanders is largely untested on the public scene. He hasn't been the victim of essentially a right-wing attack machine like Hillary Clinton has for the last 20-plus years, and that has damaged her in the eyes of some Americans. She'll have an opportunity to repair that damage moving forward. I would also note, Errol, in response to your previous question, it was a great question, she launched her campaign at Columbia University with her first meaningful speech talking about the need to deal with our broken criminal justice system and mass incarceration, and subsequent to the New Hampshire primary, returned to Harlem and the Schomburg Center to lay out in great detail the things that were necessary to deal with institutional racism and the need to provide African Americans and people of color with the most robust opportunity to pursue the American dream. And so she's laid a framework for really dealing with these issues in a spectacularly clear fashion. We're going to have to fill in the blanks as we move forward, but the outline is there. Okay,
let's talk about the political future of Hakeem Jeffries in our last minute. Whenever talk is being kicked around about who might want to challenge the mayor, and whenever pollsters go out in the field, your name keeps coming up as somebody who might consider a Democratic candidacy for mayor of New York City. Is that true?
Not at all. I'm privileged to have the job that I hold right now. I'm looking forward to working hard, not just on behalf of Hillary Clinton, but on behalf of Democrats in the Senate. It'd be wonderful for Brooklyn, for New York City, for the state of New York, if Chuck Schumer were to be the majority leader next year. And certainly we're going to do everything possible to pick up seats in the House and hopefully be in the majority where I can do the most good on behalf of the people I represent.
Are you going on the road for Hillary Clinton?
I'm looking forward to going on the road. I'll be down in the South, possibly South Carolina, but certainly North Carolina this weekend. And subsequent to that, we'll see. I'm ready, willing, and able to be deployed in support of the cause.
Okay, very good. We will be watching. Thank you so much for coming by tonight.
Good to see you always, Errol.
All right, we're going to take a short break now. Straight ahead.